Hey there guys, so I want to thank you for joining today's live stream as always. So for today's stream, we're going to be talking about I think would be a very beneficial topic for a lot of people. Before I get started though, as far as any sort of promotional events or anything happening in the future, I do have another, basically there's a discount I'm going to be offering on my program. I'm going to share that pretty soon. But it's going to be specifically for November, and it's going to be a discount on the program. So I'm not going to mention exactly what the discount is just yet, but you can reach out to me if you want to learn more about that. However, I am going to be promoting it pretty soon. It's going to be a little bit different than the trial periods that I've been doing. I'm going to do this discount specifically on the program when you sign on onto the program, and it'll stay, that specific price will stay throughout the duration of your program. So in order to learn more, just feel free to reach out. But again, I'll share a little bit more information on that pretty soon as to how you can be a part of that and how you can get on the program with that discount. But that's what I wanted to mention. I'm going to do that specifically for November. That'll be the big thing that I'm going to do this month. So with all that being said, guys, that's all I have. Other than mentioning my website, I'm making a lot of different changes to the website. I'm still working on it. It is a process to get it up to where I want it to be because I'm very meticulous, and I'm trying to take a little bit of time to make my website a little bit more user friendly. And I'm also adding a new section for client specific information. So that's another thing I'm adding. But as for right now, I have pretty much everything in there describing how the program works, how it's structured, how you can access any of the previous live streams. You can check out Telegram. There's a link to go to that. It lets you know when I do these live streams on the home page. So when you go on there, there's a ton of different things that you can look at. It does have the pricing for for the sort of basic package for my program, so you can check that out as well. So I wanted to mention that it's bponlinefitness.com. So you can type that in straight out on Google or any search engine, and it'll take you straight to my website, and all the information will be there related to the program and related to how my program's structured based on your goals, what I do, how I check in with my clients, and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started with today's topic, which is basically gaining muscle for hard gainers. So this is actually a topic that I'm well familiar with and that I've dealt with myself, because it took me a long time to get to the point that I'm at now, because I had to learn so many different things even before I became a online coach and I got certified as a personal trainer. There's a lot of things that I had to learn to know how to properly gain muscle. And there's so many different factors to it. But just because you have difficulty, and I know there's a lot of different people, a lot of guys that are specifically sort of in this, I guess you would say, this type of category of people who have trouble with gaining muscle. So for today, this is, sort of the overview of what I'm going to be going over today as far as helping those who have trouble gaining muscle to gain muscle. So, of course, we're going to go with introduction. We're going to go through basics of nutrition when it relates to gaining muscle for somebody who has trouble gaining muscle. We're going to go over supplementation, strength training, frequency, and volume, which I'll discuss a little bit more in detail what that means, as well as rest and recovery. Now, if you're familiar with a lot of my live streams, some of these topics are pretty familiar. You've probably heard of these different topics before that I've discussed. I've discussed throughout many live streams about these specific topics that I'm describing here. But the only, or I should say, the biggest difference between, narrowing down on those specific topics is today that I'm talking about specifically for individuals who have trouble with gaining muscle, or in other cases, gaining weight, of course. So, gaining muscle for hard gainers, individuals who find it challenging to put on muscle mass, can be a more complex process, but it is certainly achievable with the right approach. So, like I've just mentioned, that I dealt with this myself. I have had experience with it for the longest time. It was very difficult for me to gain muscle because I just kind of had a skinnier physique, I guess you would say. So it took me a while, but once I sort of learned, you know, the proper way to work out, the proper way, the proper nutrition and what I should be focusing on, protein intake or any kind of supplements, which I'm going to discuss. There's a bunch of different things that I sort of had to learn. And once I sort of got into the routine of learning these sort of methods, then that's basically how I got to, gaining muscle and got to where I am today. Because for the longest time, I used to weigh like around 130 for the longest time. It took me a long time to get up to where I am now, which is a little bit over 160, which I'm still trying to get to a higher weight too, and still trying to gain more muscle. But like with anything, it's a process. But from being to 130 and 160, that's a big difference. So the basics of nutrition. Nutrition for hard gainers, also known as ectomorphs, that's sort of the term for somebody who struggles with gaining weight or gaining muscle, is known as an ectomorph, is essential for supporting muscle growth and overall health. These individuals often struggle to gain weight and muscle mass due to a fast metabolism. So that's a key factor, is that if you do struggle, you have a faster metabolism than a lot of different people. So, in difficulty in consuming enough calories. Another thing a lot of people that are ectomorphs lack is that they don't consume enough calories. That's one thing you got to keep in mind, that if your goal is to gain muscle, you do need to consume. You need to be in a surplus, which I'm going to sort of go over some of the different aspects when it relates to nutrition towards gaining weight and muscle. So, to gain weight and build muscle, you need to consume more calories than you burn. So, you calculate your daily maintenance calories and aim to eat 300 to 500 calories above that level. So, I think I've talked about maintenance calories in the past, but that's basically roughly the calories that you intake in a day to sort of maintain your weight that you're at right now. So you want to go at least 300 to 500 calories above that specific level. So you want to aim for at least 1.2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or I should say pounds as well. So basically, it's a pound per body weight for protein that you should intake versus in grams, I should say. So you want to get at least 1 gram of protein per your body weight. So the protein is crucial for muscle repair and growth. You always hear often that about protein and muscle gain. It goes hand in hand because it helps to aid in the muscle repair and growth process. Carbs, they provide energy for workouts and support muscle glycogen stores. So focus on complex carbohydrates like whole grains, rice, and oats. Again, like I mentioned all the time, carbs are really, carbs is kind of the fad thing right now because carbs are sort of seen as bad, but carbs aren't necessarily bad if you're intaking the proper carbs. So you want to focus on more complex carbs versus a lot of the other sort of foods. So you don't want to focus too much on, a ton of bread or a ton of things of that nature, a ton of like white bread. what you want to focus on is like whole grain rice. I eat brown rice. I think I believe brown rice is one of the healthiest types of rice you can intake, and oats. Oats is another thing. I eat oatmeal every day. I eat rice every day, and the same way with the bread that I eat. It's honey wheat. Anything of that sort, any kind of wheat bread, whole grain is going to be a better option than just the white bread. So sort of keep that in mind. You also want to have healthy fats from sources like avocados, nuts, and olive oil. Nuts is another thing that I have been consuming a little bit more here recently, and I use those as a snack. I mean, there's so many things that you can sort of supplement and add into your diet to sort of intake more of these calories. So the healthy fats are essential for overall health and hormone production. So just keep in mind, it's very simple when you sort of look at it overall. So you want to aim to eat 300 to 500 calories above your maintenance level, which is the calories or the calorie intake you are right now. You want to go above that, and then you want to aim for at least 1.2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram, or 1 gram of protein per body weight to help with the muscle repair and growth process. Your carbs you want that to be complex carbs, whole grains, rice, and oats. Healthy fats, you want to focus on avocados, nuts, olive oil, and again, that's essential for overall health and hormone production. It's pretty simple and clear cut. You just need to focus primarily on being in a calorie surplus, which is consuming those calories above what you normally would consume. Now, that can be hard for somebody who is not used to consuming more calories like that, but it's something that you have to adjust to if you're wanting to gain more muscle and you're wanting to gain weight. So, supplementation. This is something that I use all the time too. Every single day, I have multiple supplements that I take. So, the basics of supplementation. Supplementation can be a helpful tool for hard gainers, also known as ectomorphs, who struggle to gain weight and muscle mass. While supplements should not replace a well balanced diet, they can be used to complement your nutrition plan and provide specific nutrients that may aid in your muscle building efforts. So basically, you want to focus on proteins. That's the big thing. One of the things is a fast digesting protein source would be like protein shakes, anything of that nature. I don't have it mentioned here, but you've got like whey protein, which is a good source, popular for post workout shakes. It provides a quick supply of amino acids to support muscle recovery and growth. So that's mainly whey protein when talking about the fast digesting protein source. That's whey. And then you've got casein protein, which is a slower digesting protein that can be consumed before bedtime to provide a sustained release of amino acids during the night. So there's different sort of supplements that you can look at. And protein is one of the major things that you want to look at. Another thing that I take is creatine. That is very beneficial for muscle growth. And again, when you're focusing on the supplements, one thing you don't want to sort of do is to rely sort of on protein as just a meal in itself. You still want to consume, foods and then taking protein as well. So that's the reason why they're supplements, because they are to supplement your diet. So the reason for the protein shake is not to have it as just one meal, just to drink it as a meal itself. You do need to have that protein along with, say, breakfast. That's what I usually do with my meals. And usually when I'm done with my workout, I always, come home and then I usually make breakfast. It's usually oatmeal. I make toast sometimes. I maybe eat Greek yogurt and a banana. That's sort of roughly what I eat on a day to day basis. And then I have my protein powder that I mix, and that's sort of what I eat in the morning. But again, you don't want to just focus on the protein just by itself, that it's a meal. You still need to consume, food outside of that protein because it's just a supplement. It's just to supplement your diet if you're lacking in a particular area. If you're lacking in protein, you take a protein supplement. That's like, for example, if you're lacking in vitamin D, you take a vitamin D supplement. That's the reason for a supplementation is you're supplementing it. You're not trying to have it as just the diet. It's not your diet. It's just a supplement. So just keep that in mind. But going back to the protein, there's different types of protein that you can try. Whey protein is, of course, the most popular. It's the fast digesting protein. Remember that, and that it's very beneficial and very popular for post workout shakes. Going back to the casein protein, it's a slower digesting protein and it can be consumed before bedtime. So it's a more, it's a slow digesting and it's more geared towards, later on in the day or, that sort of type of sort of protein intake. So, strength training for hard gainers. So, there's a bunch of different methods that you can go about when it comes to strength training and talking about weightlifting and muscle gain. So there's 4 different sort of things that I have compiled here, and these are the basic this is the basic sort of blueprint when it comes to gaining muscle and gaining strength and getting to your goal of being somebody who has trouble gaining muscle to being able to gain it. So we just talked about before your nutrition and your supplements. So one thing to keep in mind is all of this compiles or it stacks on top of each other. These are things that you need to do in order to get there. You've got to maintain your nutrition, like I just mentioned. You have to be in a calorie surplus. You got to make sure that you're getting the proper foods into your system. You do need to take supplements, protein in particular. If you're lacking in that area, you need to intake that and add that too. So you need to do those things along with what I'm talking about here. So just keep in mind that these different methods sort of stack on each other. So with compound exercises, you want to focus on compound exercises that target multiple muscle groups simultaneously. That's basically what a compound exercise is. You can do isolation, which I've discussed in the past. Isolation exercises are more focused on one particular muscle. But let's go back to compound. So these types of exercises stimulate significant muscle growth and are highly efficient. An example of these includes squats, deadlifts, bench presses, overhead presses, and pull-ups. These are all targeting multiple muscles all at once. So there's significant muscle growth that can come from compound exercises. Now, I just mentioned isolation, and I know it's not on here, but isolation is more focused on a particular muscle group. It may not be as efficient as using compound to gain muscle and to target multiple muscle groups, but it is a great exercise to do if you're wanting to build more muscle in a particular area. So examples of isolation based exercises would be bicep curls, tricep extensions, basically any type of exercise that says, bicep or tricep or anything in the title. That's likely an exercise that's going to be an isolation exercise. Any exercise that specifically targets that muscle is likely going to be isolation. So basically, the main reason for the isolation exercises is to build strength in a particular muscle a little bit more. If you like strength in a muscle, isolation exercises are great. Compound is just an overall, you're gaining muscle in multiple groups. And it's just a little bit more efficient because you're stimulating multiple muscles, if that makes sense. So progressive overload, this is another thing I talk about all the time. So, and it goes hand in hand. Progressive overload is a big thing with, even if you are somebody who normally gains muscle or you're easily gaining muscle, this is a great method that you want to try. Either way, because it's important to sort of keep this in mind. Progressive overload: to build strength and muscle, you must progressively increase the weight you lift over time. This can be achieved by adding more weight to the bar, performing more repetitions, or increasing the intensity of your workout. Progressive overload is not just it's not just about gradually increasing your weight. It can also be your intensity, and it can also be the volume that you perform. You don't just It doesn't have to be particularly about going up in weight, or gradually increasing weight. It can be intensity. You can, one thing you could do is you could slow down your reps, you know, maybe speed them up if you're focusing on endurance. There's different things that you can do when it comes to, you know, making, progressively gaining muscle. So another thing is adding more repetitions. More repetitions is a good idea. If you maybe want to try doing that instead of gaining muscle. And there's different methods. It just kind of depends on what you're focusing on. And, if you're having trouble being able to go up in weight, the best thing to do would be to focus a little bit more on that muscle that you're lacking in. Get comfortable with that. If you are really having trouble, then a good way to do progressive overload, as far as without having to sort of add muscle, or excuse me, add weight to the bar, is again to maybe add a little bit more repetitions than you normally would. Increase the intensity, slow it down a little bit more. I mention all the time that slowing your reps down is going to really activate the muscle. And it's harder. It is harder when you slow down your reps, but you're engaging in the muscle more when you're going through a controlled movement in a slower motion. So that would be another way that you could increase your intensity. Reps and sets. I've talked about this a little bit, that reps and sets can sort of vary depending on what your specific goal is, whether you're focusing on strength, whether you're focusing on hypertrophy, or whether you're focusing more on endurance. So a common approach is 3 to 5 sets of 5 to 8 repetitions for compound exercises. This rep and set scheme strikes a balance between strength and hypertrophy or muscle growth. So this is sort of the mid-range, and I've talked about this in a previous stream where I sort of explain exercises that are sets and reps that are focused on specifically strength, muscle growth, or hypertrophy, and then endurance would be higher reps. So you've got the lower reps, which is more focused on strength, and you're likely lifting heavier weights. And then you've got hypertrophy, which is focusing on particularly muscle gain, and you sort of add like a mid-range and like a medium tempo. And then with endurance, or you're somebody who's wanting, basically trying to gain speed and more agility and quickness, or anything of that sort, then you're going to focus on, a higher rep range, basically. So there's basically 3 different sort of areas when it comes to the reps and sets. But the main thing for this, and focusing on the muscle gain, is to focus on 3 to 5 sets of your exercises with at least 5 to 8 repetitions. That's optimal for muscle growth. So for form and technique, I mention this all the time with my clients. This is very important because you need to pay close attention to proper form and technique. Good form not only reduces the risk of injury, but it also ensures that you're targeting the intended muscle group effectively, or muscle groups effectively. So when you're paying attention to form, it's not only to prevent that risk of injury, it's also to fully engage in the muscle. And that sort of goes a little bit with when I'm talking about the slow rep range. When you're doing slower reps too, you're paying attention a little bit more to what you're doing, because you have more time under tension with that particular motion. So you're going to be paying more attention to your form too. So that's another thing you can keep in mind with slowing down reps. But pay close attention to the proper form and technique, and just keep in mind that it's not only just about, reducing injury risk, it's also about effectively engaging that muscle that you're wanting to target. So frequency and volume. So frequency, when we're talking about here, is basically how often you would work out. And again, all of these stack on top of each other. So keep all of this in mind, your nutrition, your supplements, and then as well as your strength training structure, your weightlifting structure. Frequency refers to how often you perform strength training workouts in a given time period. So for hard gainers, a balanced training frequency is important to provide adequate stimulus for muscle growth without overtraining. So your training frequency, you want to focus on or aim for 3 to 4 strength training sessions per week. So you're basically working out 3 to 4 times a week. Excuse me. This frequency provides enough stimulus for muscle growth while allowing sufficient time for recovery. It also prevents overtraining, which can hinder muscle gains. So you don't want to go over, that specific amount of training sessions, because then you're going to go into, the overtraining area, which is basically going to deteriorate your results, and your results won't, come in the proper manner that you're seeking. So your recovery days are important. So with this, you've got 3 to 4 training days, so you're likely going to have 2 to 3 rest days there. So recovery days, you want to incorporate rest or active recovery. So you don't want to have any structured workouts, but you want to be lightly active. So between your strength training workouts, to allow your muscles and central nervous system to recover, that's the importance of rest days. Rest days are important for preventing overuse injuries and reducing the risk of burnout. So what I always mention to clients is to focus on, light activities, low impact activities that don't require a lot of, like structured exercise, walking, maybe jogging, just something that's light and that you're still staying active while on the rest day, but you're allowing your body to recover, basically. So let's sort of go back through that. So you want to focus on 3 to 4 training sessions per week. So again, this provides enough stimulus for muscle growth while allowing sufficient time for recovery, preventing overtraining. So for your recovery days, you want to incorporate rest, but also active recovery. So you want to get a little bit of activity in, a little bit of low impact workouts in to help and aid with the muscle recovery, but you don't want to do excessive workouts. So I just want to go over that again just to sort of clear that up. So the volume, which we sort of discussed, but I'm going to go back over it again here. And this goes sort of back into the reps and sets. So volume refers to the total amount of work performed in a single workout or over a training cycle. It's typically calculated by multiplying numbers of sets, reps, and weight lifted. For hard gainers, managing volume is crucial to balance intensity and recovery. So for your sets and reps, this is sort of like a rehash, but a common set and rep scheme for hard gainers is at least 3 to 5 sets of 5 to 8 repetitions for compound exercises. So this balance between lower and higher reps is going to allow for both strength and muscle gain. It's sort of that middle ground. So the total volume is that you want to gradually increase the total volume over time to stimulate muscle growth, which sort of goes back into progressive overload. This can be achieved by adding weight to the bar, or increasing the number of sets or repetitions. Be mindful of recovery and avoid rapid volume increases in, like a particular week that may lead to overtraining. So you don't want to increase that volume too quickly, basically. So this is all basically what we just discussed, but just keep in mind the recommended sets, the recommended reps, and then you want to do that progressive overload. This is all key, a part of the process to get to where you want to be. So we're going to go back here talking about rest and recovery. So rest and recovery is a critical aspect. And one reason why I'm talking about rest and recovery again is I know that certain people do have sort of issue with off days, which is like the same way with me. However, I sort of got adjusted to it once I sort of adjusted to my routine, and I understood that you need to have rest days and you need to have recovery. We need to sleep in order to function the next day. So our body still needs rest from, workouts. So rest and recovery are a critical aspect of any fitness and muscle building program, especially for individuals often referred to as hard gainers. Hard gainers are those who struggle to gain muscle and weight, then due to faster metabolism, smaller appetite, or genetics. Proper rest and recovery can help hard gainers maximize their muscle growth potential. And again, the reason why I mention this is because if you're a hard gainer, you're an ectomorph, you're going to have a higher metabolism. So if you don't incorporate those rest days, it's going to be counterproductive to your goal. So keep that in mind that you've got to have those rest and recovery days to maximize that muscle growth. And again, it's to help repair the tissue and muscles. It's a part of the process that you have to keep in mind. So, with all that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. I really wanted to sort of dive deep in this one and to explain the different methods. I want to mention again that each of these that I discussed, you stack on top of each other. This is all a balance between these methods. You want to have your nutrition in check. You want to have your supplements in check. You want to have your strength training and workouts in check. You want to have that proper frequency of your workouts, which is 3 to 4 days a week. And then you want to have at least 2 to 3 rest days there. And then you have that volume, recommended amount of sets. You've got 3 to 5 sets, 5 to 8 reps, sort of that good starting point. So keep all of this in mind, that this is all methods you need to stack on top of each other. And you need to be consistent with these methods in order to reach your muscle gain goal, especially if you're somebody who has trouble gaining muscle. One big thing is that you need to really focus on your nutrition. That's a big aspect of it, especially if you have a faster metabolism. You do need to be in that calorie surplus to really see the results. So keep that in mind. But again, guys, that's all I have for you today. I will give you more information soon about that discount I'm going to be offering on my program. Again, you can contact me with the information I've provided here. You can go to my website that discusses a little bit more information on my program. It's bponlinefitness.com. But with all that being said, guys, thank you for your time, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.